Hi everyone, I'm Pat, and I'm here to talk about the third episode of Season 2 of the originals, titled Every Mother's Son. So, tonight's episode was very focused on Esther and Finn, who both we haven't seen all that much of. They haven't been as fleshed out as some of the other characters, but they're both back this season, so now seems like a good time to flesh them out. So, one of the big things this episode was we really got more insight into Esther as a character and as a mother, and how she treated her children and her relationship with Klaus especially, and these birds, starlings, which have some significance to Viking lore. So that was all interesting because we got to see flashbacks to the original family when they were children again, which we briefly got to see last year. And we got to have the original Esther back, Alice Evans, I think her name is. So that was cool. Esther as a villain, I wasn't overly fond of in Season 3 of Vampire Diaries. I wasn't sold on... I don't know, just something about her just never really quite grabbed me as a villain. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, you want to kill your kids. But I could really see this episode that she really loved them in a really sick way. Because before, I think that's where it wasn't quite clicking with me. In Season 3 of Vampire Diaries, I didn't feel like she actually liked her children at all. Because immediately after we met her in that season, she wanted to kill them. I was like, okay. But now that her goal, we found out this episode, isn't really to kill them or anything like that again. It's to give them new bodies, like Finn and Cole, to remove them from being vampires. So she's kind of trying to save them, in a way, Elijah and Klaus, and even Haley. She kind of wants them all to be a family, but not in death. She just wants them to live normal lives and not be cursed by what she caused all those years ago. So it raised this kind of philosophical question, this episode, where Klaus and her are kind of they're arguing, and Klaus pretty much says, you're the one that caused all of this. You turned me into this. And she was just kind of like, nope, you did this to yourself. But I did kind of do that, but I'm going to make up for it, don't worry. So it was cool, and she switched bodies, which was interesting. Now she has a new body. The new actress I thought was really good, really scary in her couple minutes of being Esther this episode. One of the big fun parts of this episode for me was having Finn play a really central role this episode, because out of all the originals, even Michael, Finn, before this episode, was by far the least developed out of any of them. He had very little to say in Vampire Diaries. He showed up, and he seemed badass at first. He had long hair, and he looked like he was going to be really tough. But then it turned out he was actually really reserved and quiet, and he didn't say much, and he was suicidal, and he wanted to help his mom back then, kill all of them. He was just kind of... I thought he was interesting because he was so unlike the rest of his siblings. But I think he just wasn't really that scary, that intimidating. He was just kind of there, and he just wanted to die. I thought the moment Finn became most interesting was when we learned about his backstory in Vampire Diaries with a woman named Sage who had loved him. He had turned her like 900 years ago, and then she waited all the time he was in a coffin for him to get out of it. So it was like this really, really romantic love story, but it was really tragic because he died and then she died because she was part of his bloodline. But this episode, he really got to shine, and the new guy who plays him, Yusuf Gatewood, is fantastic because he adds much more personality to Finn. He's still got the rigid, mama's boy, quiet, kind of reserved demeanor about him, but there's also this underlying scariness, like he could just snap at any moment, and in this episode he does a couple times, and you really feel that hatred that he has for the fact that I think he says that he was treated unfairly because of how long he was daggered. Because when you think about it, Cole and Rebecca and Elijah even, they have been daggered a number of times, but it's always only been for, maybe like a century or a little longer, sometimes even a little less than that. So I compare that to Finn being stuck in a box for 900 years. Now, when you think about it, the originals are 1,000 years old. So, in that 1,000 years of his life, Finn missed 9/10 of it. he gets cursed, blessed in a way, with this eternal life. He lives for 1,000 years, but 900 of it he was stuck in a coffin, neutralized. And that kind of sucks. But I mean, he hated being a vampire anyway, so like, if I was Klaus, I would have been like, you didn't even like it, so you should be thanking me. But so he was mad about that. He even asked, I was glad he asked, why was I left in the box for that long? Because I always wondered that. I'm like, why was he kept in it for so long? And Klaus gave him a Klaus answer. But and then the interesting thing I thought was fascinating was he had blamed Elijah for not taking the dagger out of him, for leaving him daggered for so long, because Elijah always claims to be so noble and family loving, but it's been pretty clear, especially last week and now this week, that he had some favorites amongst the family, because he treated Cole and Finn, they have problems for sure, but he treated them very, very kind of unfairly compared to how he treats Klaus. He's always about redeeming Klaus. Finn and Cole, he's just kind of like, I'm not gonna help you. I'm gonna help you get daggered and not get you undaggered. So they kind of pointed out Elijah's hypocrisy at times, which I think is needed, because as noble as he is, he's definitely not perfect, and I'm glad they kind of tied that into this new character we met, Gia, who Elijah's now trying to mentor, because Marcel's forcing him to, but he's trying to mentor her now because of how he kind of failed some of his other siblings throughout the years. There was no Cole in this episode, no Michael. We had a mention of Cole, but nothing on that front, really. This Gia thing with Elijah is pretty interesting. I'm not sure where it's going or what importance her character is going to have, but I hope it's worth it. Haley was offered, to be put in a new body, to not be a hybrid anymore. And I don't think any of them are really going to take Esther's offer, to be honest. It'd be shocking if they did. I don't think so. They don't seem to be overly still convinced. But her plan is to take everything they love away from them. So then they have to beg her to give them new bodies. And because she loves them, she will. So it was a good episode. The family dinner was intense. I knew it would be. Anytime there's a get-together with the Michelsons, it usually ends with some shouting and some harm done to each other. But it was good. It was a good episode. I'm really looking forward to all of this. Like, this was some pretty big developments, at least on the Esther and Finn front of the season storyline. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at thispatguy, or at thatpatguy.com. I can't even say this part. I've never plugged my own Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at thatpatguy. Yeah, so have a good week, guys. I'll see you next week to talk about episode 4. See you then. Bye.